the infamous Tavistock Gender Identity Clinic in England. It is the big gender identity clinic, and it has taken a lot of flack from a lot of good people who have gotten no end of flack in return, has been ordered to shut down by next spring. Now,
wow.
Why by next spring? Why not right now? But okay, it's been ordered to be shut down, and this is extraordinary. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the idea that this clinic is apparently engaged in procedures that are egregious enough that it needs to be shut down raises exactly the question about, if it needs to be shut down, what about the procedures that happen between now and when it is shut down?
Right.
And this is reminiscent of what happened as mandates were lifted over COVID. And so I want to point out, this is now a hallmark of how Goliath behaves when it's caught red-handed, right? So it can be caught. It can be forced to change course. It cannot be forced to admit that it is changing course. And the way it makes it appear that it's just simply involved in something normal rather than a tacit admission that it was full of shit is that it sets a timeline, which makes it seem like, oh, this is just another, bureaucratic date on the calendar, rather than, oh my God, this clinic has been injuring young people and needs to stop yesterday, not a month from now.
Much less, 8 months or, whenever spring counts as, I don't know, beginning of spring is still, 7-8 months away?
Yeah.
More than that.
So I don't know. I mean, we need better language for this, but Goliath sucks is basically where I am with it.
Yeah. Goliath sucks, and it hides behind its own bureaucracy in order to maintain a semblance of business as usual.
That's just the thing. It has this is boring, business as usual. There's something in the future. It's not that it's happening tomorrow because we suddenly realize we're maiming children.
Yeah. Exactly. So there are a lot of pieces of this story, and it is. I will link to several of these in the show notes, and we're not going to talk a whole lot about it now. But I will show you, for instance, I first heard about this from the GenSpect press release, Zach, which you can show here, which is quite careful and has all of these links on it. So GenSpect is an excellent organization, which is at the forefront of the conclusion that we should not be transitioning children, and that we should not be encouraging children to question what they are on the basis of a fleeting, flight of fancy. But among what they have here, actually, if I may, Zachary, have my screen back for a moment. Thank you. They've got a Times of London article here. Tavistock Gender Clinic forced to shut over safety fears. This is published just a few days ago, July 28th. The NHS, the National Health Service in England, is shutting down its gender identity clinic for children after a review found that it failed vulnerable under 18s. It has been ordered to close, exactly as you said, and this is due to a report put out by pediatrician Dr. Hilary Cass, who is leading a review of the service. And I also have that review, which I will post to the show notes. It's very long. It's very detailed. She and her team went and did interviews and assessments and all sorts of the right sorts of investigations as to whether or not this clinic, which has been patently hurting children for a long time now, should continue to be the one and only place that children who are presenting with some kind of gender dysphoria in Great Britain should be sent to. And the conclusion was a resounding no. No, they should not. So, there need to be more options. There need to be more options besides affirmative care, which is if you wake up one day and say you're a turtle, you're a turtle. Nope, not that. If you wake up one day and say you're a toaster, you're a toaster. Nope, not that. If you wake up one day and say you're the sex that you are not, well, then yes, we have just the puberty blockers and then cross-sex hormones and then surgery for you. It's insane. And finally, it is stopping, at least in Great Britain, where it will be soon.
So, related to Goliath hiding behind its bureaucracy, we are also watching everything foundational, right? The things that we all once agreed on being undone at every level. And so with the mandates We saw what I said,
vaccine mandates.
The vaccine mandates. Mm-hmm. We saw what I argued was a double violation of Nuremberg, because not only did informed consent not exist in the context of the vaccines in question, but those who refused to administer them and in some cases take them were in jeopardy of their jobs. So the obligation to resist immoral orders was itself being punished. And in this case, we have what is an obvious violation of the Hippocratic Oath. Right? The fact is, the purpose of this clinic was to violate the Hippocratic Oath. Right? Now, it may be, and I agree with the following statement. If you are one of those rare people who is gender dysphoric and is going to reach adulthood and remain compelled that something is not right, you need help. And the earlier we give you that help, likely the better it works. So I do have compassion for people who experience this early and know it. But it's a very tiny number of people. And the problem is that this clinic is not acting with caution with respect to, yes, there are a tiny number of those people and we need to sort them out and find them in amongst the vast sea of people who are momentarily confused about their gender. Yep. Instead, the point is affirmative care is a euphemism for a violation of the Hippocratic Oath, right? The fact is, this is doing physical harm, right? Just measurable harm, disrupting the reproductive capacity, the sexual well-being and capacity of these people, altering, destroying functional tissue and replacing it with, at best, a simulation of the other sex's hardware, right? That is harmful. Right? What happened to First Do No Harm? Well, it got obscured by affirmative care, which, who's not for affirmative care? It sounds like preventative care, right? Well, it ain't.
Sounds positive.
Yep, sure does.
Yep. Not yes, but yes, and we're going to say yes to all the things, including affirmative care. Yeah, I will say, I made some of those arguments in Zach, you can show this briefly. This piece that I wrote it a lot earlier, but I published to my Substack in November of last year. Protect children, do not allow them to medically transition, in which I make precisely this argument, which is that even though there will be some very rare people who are actually going to live a more fulfilled life by existing as much as possible as the sex that they are not. And those people will presumably know that pretty young. We risk far more harm to far more people by ever allowing children or youth to transition, because those errors will be much, much, much more numerous.
And I would add one other thing to it, which is, even if we were to take the trans activists at face value and imagine that there is a huge increase in the number of people in this category, it immediately invites the next question, which is, what's causing that?
Yes.
And to the extent that there is something causing it that is novel, the question is, can we figure out what it is so that we don't do this to any more people?
Yeah. What happened to diagnosis and prevention? In fact, gosh, have I ever heard anyone in this argument talk about preventing transness?
Where is that?
Right? And because it has been slid in as if it's the next civil rights battle, as if it is inherently who you are. This will sound, I will be called a bigot for even saying that, because I wouldn't say I'm trying to prevent homosexuality. No. Right? But transness appears to be a malfunction. Well, a dysfunction between your actual sex and either what your brain understands or something else that happened in development.
I would be a little cautious about that, because we do have many cultures which have this category. And so I would argue that the increase is almost certainly the result of malfunction, but not every case is the result of malfunction, or at least we don't know that yet.
Yeah, I I don't think I agree with that. Now, we do have, in fact, we do know, and I've written about in a couple of other essays, for instance, genetic anomalies, as in, I think, Dominican Republic, where we actually can track, there's a lot of people who, the machiembras, who, and I don't remember which way it is, I think, are born appearing to be male and then become female in puberty, become visibly female in puberty, or maybe it's the other way around. I can't remember.
I think that's right.
And so, that's a malfunction. That's a genetic malfunction.
There's a question about it. We have this pattern in many cultures. We also have a question about, just as we have in many species, the production of more offspring than adults can manage to feed, right? So there's basically, selection is playing a game where it doesn't have enough information about what the future will look like. And so it biases in a direction. And we have that game also played with respect to the balance between the sexes. And so in cultures where there are too many men and not enough women, or vice versa, the idea that some group of people can switch categories and be paired up, and that the society makes allowances for that, could arguably be a very sensible...
Play the role without actually being able to fully play the role,
right?
Because, born female, you're never going to produce sperm.
No, but
born male, you're never going to produce eggs.
It's at the right level. It's at the level you would expect selection to fix the problem, which is to say, we will treat you this way, but nobody's confused about what it actually means.
I see this as a possibility under rare and very particular circumstances. So okay, I cede that point to you. The bigger point right now is, as you said, the incredible rise in people claiming to be trans, and some of it, as has been very, very well discussed by all sorts of people, including us, I think, is about social contagion. But there's also the question of what we are doing society-wide that may be prompting this. Yeah. And the fact is that we are flooding our waterways with endocrine disruptors, and with what are, for many people, cross-sex hormones, right?
Our waterways and our airways are flooded with garbage. And the point, airwaves is really what I mean.
Yeah.
But the point is, we are treating this sensitive developmental process with complete disregard. We are ignoring the fact that the harms are quite clearly, the most likely cause is novelty, hypernovelty in this case. And also, to the extent that one can say what I said, which is the transness exists in many cultures, there's a reason that you might expect it to emerge, right? So it's not inherently pathological. But even in those cases, I am not aware of a case in which either pharmaceutical or surgical modification is the response. And so to the extent that somebody believes that they are in this other category, not altering them, first doing no harm, allowing them to transition, supporting them in so doing, but leaving open the possibility that if that doesn't turn out to be what was bugging them, that maybe they get to go backwards, right? That has to be left open. And the idea that somehow, not only are we going to embrace that some huge percentage of the population has this condition, and that we are obligated morally to address it early, but that we are obligated morally to address it irreversibly is, it's 3 steps insane.
Yeah, no, it really truly is. We are everything about what the West, and now, specifically the United States, is doing on this front is wrong-headed, increasingly irreversible, ignores reality and everything that has come before, and makes us look like idiots.
Yeah.
And puts us at risk of far more than simply being laughingstocks of the rest of the world.
Right. And we are, how dumb is the predicament, right? You either get to look like an idiot for taking this seriously in cases where it clearly is not what it appears, or you get to be a bigot, right? In what universe is that your choice? right? That's evidence that somebody has erased a possible category because they don't want anybody in it. And the fact is, all the reasonable people have skepticism, they have compassion, they are trying to navigate the difficult question. That's not bigotry.
No.
Right?
No, it's not. And I actually, increasingly, as we've had this conversation, I'm wondering about the complete lack of discussion of addressing root causes and preventing.
Yeah.
And preventing, because other than the activists who are leading the charge, I don't think that people who actually are living, the few people that we are still in touch with who are living as trans people would say, this is a better life than if I weren't dealing with gender dysphoria.
Yeah, I don't think I've met a single trans person who had that perspective.
Right.
And I will say we know newly, so we knew a number of trans students. Mm-hmm. We newly know Blair White and Buck Angel, who are...
I don't know Blair.
Well, I've met Blair White a couple times. I have never met Buck Angel in person, but we've certainly interacted electronically. But anyway, I think that they're doing a very good job. They're, politically very far apart from each other. They're doing a very good job. These are two people who have transitioned very compellingly, right? And they are very open about what it is and what it isn't. And anyway, I think that they provide a pretty good model for how to discuss these issues without losing your mind.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I haven't paid a lot of attention there. I know a couple of people who aren't public personas, who I'm not going to name here, who I'm thinking of, who struggle mightily and live as the sex that they are not, knowing that they are not the sex that they present as, and wish that they didn't have to.
Yeah.
Right. And all decent people will have compassion for that predicament. And frankly, all reasonable people will also agree that you do not take a child's word when they wake up one morning at face value and send them to the clinic. And, thank a lot of people for working hard for many years to get Tavistock shut down in the near future, and hope that begins to cause the rest of the dominoes to fall.